Welcome to League of Lit, where we discuss books, adaptations, and anything else we wish to talk about and tie it to lit. Because we can.
We most absolutely can.
Yeah, for real. Like, literally, almost anything you give us, we could definitely figure out a way.
We find chain reaction to get there.
It's like, have you ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes.
When he's like, give me one word, and I will show you how the word of that word is Greek.
Yes.
He'll do it with anything.
Yes.
That's us with literature.
Not wrong on that one.
All right, moving on.
Before we even give you an idea as to what we're talking about, because we have given you no hints so far.
None to seek.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that we are not a spoiler-free podcast. So you have been warned.
Although, if we spoil any of this for you, you're probably, 12? And you haven't entered high school yet.
Or you have not been introduced to the powerhouse that is William Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm. And his least powerful play? I don't know.
It's his most popular one, at least,
It's
because
just,
everyone knows it.
everybody
And
knows it, yeah.
it's literally used so many different ways.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is one of Shakespeare's tragedies, Romeo and Juliet.
Very tragic.
Although it's honestly hilarious in my opinion.
I find it very funny. I was going to say it's also a comedy.
I don't, like, it's classified as one of Shakespeare's tragedies, but I know what's tragic about it, but I laugh every time I have to watch anything through it. Yeah,
I mean, the issue with Romeo and Juliet, and I think with being adults looking at Romeo and Juliet, is that we see sort of all of the problematic pieces.
But even as a freshman in high school,
Yeah.
I laughed my way through my freshman English class
Wow.
going through it.
That's because Shakespeare's language is very strange, and the way he chose to use it in this particular play, he, I think, even wanted this to be funny, despite it being a tragedy.
I think it's possible.
It would be very Shakespeare
Oh, absolutely.
for him to be like,
And according to Google, because I honestly have like no idea, this play was done in 1597.
So just a couple years.
Just a couple years.
It's only a few years old. So I guess I should give a synopsis of Romeo and Juliet for people who don't know what it's about.
Why not? Let's just breeze right through it.
It's the whole star-crossed lovers. Romeo, Montague, and Juliet Capulet meet, fall in love, their families hate each other, they die. The end.
I feel like the prologue is honestly the best way to do it.
Please read it.
So, here we go. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break a new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventure piteous overthrows, doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage, the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss our toil shall strive to mend.
And that is the what is going to be the next 45 minutes, not 2 hours. We're not going to put you through that.
No. But civil hands are unclean because of civil blood, which I don't know how blood or hands can be civil.
Very Shakespeare.
Very.
Very Shakespeare. That's the gist of the play. Obviously, we'll get more into each character and all of that when we talk about adaptations. But obviously, most people know that Romeo and Juliet are the stars of the play titled Romeo and Juliet. So, you're welcome.
Yes.
Teaching all the children today.
And there are tons of other, because I mean, you have the parents of each one. You have Paris, which is a prince, and it still strikes me as odd that Shakespeare named him Paris. But maybe that was meant to be more of a he's from France, but I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but
I mean, there is one adaptation that takes his name very literally.
Yes, and it's beautiful, and we'll get there.
Then you have the nurse on Juliet's side, who is her probably biggest confidant. The friar, who is a little problematic. I find the friar problematic, but
Only slightly.
only slightly.
Then you have Mercutio, who is technically Mercutio is the only like unbiased bystander
Yeah.
because he's not of either house.
No, he knows both of them, but he is not of either family.
Right. But I guess you could say he's Romeo's best friend. And I guess in a similar vein, you could say that the friar is also an unbiased bystander,
Sort of, yeah.
especially with how he helps Romeo and Juliet. But he's not like claimed by either family.
Yes. He is claimed by the church.
Yeah. I mean, you also have Tybalt, who is Juliet's cousin. You have Benvolio, which is
Romeo's cousin, right?
Yes.
Yes, Romeo's cousin.
Oh, I'm seeing a note in because I I have my Shakespeare textbook in front of me because I'm that much of a nerd. Where after I got my degree in English, I still have a lot of my textbooks, and my Shakespeare textbook is one of them.
You have Prince, who is the political power in Verona.
Right. And there's a note that says that Mercutio is actually kin to the prince, which
Isn't Paris kin to him too?
maybe?
I think so. His name is Escalus. Is that his actual name?
Yes,
I never really
I see.
get it in the
I
play.
see. Yeah, Paris, a young nobleman, kinsman to the prince.
Ah, look at that.
Hey, I just have to read the
Look at us learning things.
things we have overlooked, honestly, throughout the years of looking at these. And so there's actually more than one friar, but Friar Lawrence is the one that is like the quote important friar of the play. You have Friar Lawrence and you have Friar John.
Mm-hmm. And Friar John essentially is the one that takes the news of Juliet's death to Romeo later in Mantua. Speak that word correctly. Balthazar, who is Romeo's servant.
Yes. And you have Abram, which is one of the Montague's servants.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really super important other than at the top of the play. That's where we have the I bite my thumb at you.
Yeah, Abram, Samson, and Gregory, right?
Yes.
There you go.
And there's also listed, because you have Samson, Gregory, and they also list Clown. He doesn't have an actual name. He's just Clown.
Makes sense.
As servants for the Capulets.
There's an apothecary in Mantua.
Yes. You have Peter, who is a servant to Juliet's nurse. I'm absolutely blanking on any importance of this character. I'm just reading it on the cast list here.
You're like, yeah, of course. And Rosaline, who is Romeo's former love. Although at the beginning of the play, he is fully in love with Rosaline.
Yes. Which most adaptations tend to ignore that. But the one that we are fully going to be diving deep in, because we both love it very much, actually does something with
and actually
character.
Cast Rosaline. It's very normal that a play that you never even meet her.
Yes, because she's just somebody that's talked about. You don't, like, probably the only chance of actually seeing her is at the dance that Romeo and Juliet meet at.
Which they do that in the Douglas Booth one with Haley Steinfeld.
The 2013?
Yeah, Rosaline has a whole conversation with, I believe, Benvolio. It's been a minute since I've seen that one, though.
Okay.
And the chorus, I guess, if you count the beginning and the ending.
Right.
There is a chorus. You're welcome.
There's almost always a chorus because there's a level of fashion that like it follows as far as structure goes that's similar to like the Greek plays.
Yes. Very similar.
And I have it as a written in note that like the source that Shakespeare kind of used in order to create this is a story by Luigi da Porto. I have no idea which story, just it's a story. That's what I wrote.
I've never read anything by that man, so
I haven't either. But that's what we get. And so that's our little brief overview.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to dig into adaptations.
Yes. We'll mention a few of them A couple of big ones that we probably like won't really delve deep into, but we'll start with the 1960s.
Before we go there,
Yeah, go ahead.
I did a quick search of like, because I had a hunch that there would be loads of adaptations because of this being one of Shakespeare's more popular
Yes.
plays. According to IMDb, it goes back as early as 1908.
Who had time for that in 1908?
It was a short film in 1908. And then there's been like a bunch then, but the next like quote big one was the 1968.
Yes.
Which is shown in a number of freshman English classes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I distinctly remember about this adaptation is when I went through it, this was in the era of High School Musical being very popular because it was brand new. And a lot of people thought the actor who played Romeo looked a lot like Zac Efron.
Yeah, Leonard Whiting. I guess. Yeah, sort of.
Because I can't tell you how many people are like, is that Zac Efron? Dude, this was
Yeah.
from the 60s. Zac Efron was not alive.
Yeah.
He was barely a thought.
It's so funny. People are so obsessed.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that should be mentioned, some of the ridiculousness of this play is the fact that like Juliet's only like 13. Like she's like 13 or 14 years old and Romeo is like 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in like full-blown teenage hormones here.
Yes, which is essentially why the play goes the way that it does.
If anything, it should be a cautionary tale for
Yes.
dating in high school.
Yeah, literally. Don't do it, you'll die. Don't date, you'll die. That's exactly what this play gave me in high school. Not that anybody wanted to date me in high school, but...
Dude, same.
So, in 1968, like you said, Romeo and Juliet came out. It was directed by Franco... I don't know how to say his last name. Zeffirelli?
We'll go with that.
You're welcome for butchering your name, sir. And the leads were played by Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting. This was... I mean, we don't need to spend a lot of time in this one because it was very period, very what it was. It did win 2 Academy Awards.
I would say it's a very solid adaptation of the
Yes.
play.
People liked it. I mean, the director actually cut like 2/3 of the original line out of the actual play. I mean, it's 5 acts, so I get that, but a lot of people really liked it, and it's definitely held up. It's still, go watch it if you want to.
I mean, if an English teacher or professor deems it as the adaptation that they choose to show because they want you to be exposed to something that's, decent, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And I there were other adaptations between that one and the next one that we're going to do a little bit of like overview of, which is the 1996 Romeo plus Juliet that stars Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep. People love that. I mean, I like this movie. It's not the best version of Romeo and Juliet. My thing is that I like this movie because I like Baz Luhrmann. He's a great director, and I like how sort of campy everything he does is. I will say I'm not like obsessed with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio as these two characters, but I don't think they do a terrible job. The thing that gets me with this is that for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's set in modern 1996 on what would have been Verona Beach, which is essentially, to me, looks like it's in California. That would be my guess. I will say, though, it is actually more faithful than the 1968 version because Baz Luhrmann actually retained more of the original language.
Interesting.
Because they speak in Shakespeare, and they still speak as if they were, living in the 1500s, but it's set in the 1990s. Yeah, it's definitely like film school Romeo and Juliet, if you know what I mean.
Oh, it's so film school.
It's very film school Romeo
and to
Juliet.
an extent, so for those who don't know, West Side Story is essentially Romeo and Juliet, but with a different kind of twist to it. And because of the setting and the fact that they use guns instead of swords in Romeo plus Juliet, I feel like it's a blend of West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
But I never ever really got into this adaptation. I don't know if it's just like the way that everything was shot. I can't really put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And it could just be the fact that like it's not period. It just didn't work for me. Obviously there is an adaptation that's not period that worked for me because we're really going to dive into it. But this one they're trying to be modern but keep that Romeo and Juliet like classic language.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody. It's definitely, and even Baz Luhrmann's not for everybody. I mean, he's made things like Moulin Rouge in Australia, which are also two great movies. But like, again, he's a very sort of campy and quirky director, and everything that he does is very loud and bright and sort of very
in your face.
As far as the shooting goes, it's like wah, wah, like everything really like comes forward at you.
It's very quick.
If that makes sense. Yes. So yeah, it's definitely not everybody's cup of tea, but I enjoy it. I like watching it. I have to put it past me that Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio are Romeo and Juliet, because they were definitely kind of choices.
They were probably like, oh, these are two popular actors during this time. Let's go with them.
Yeah, because at that point, they both would have been very up and coming.
Yeah, no, that's right before Titanic for Leonardo and right after Little Women for Claire Danes.
Oh, Lord. Life choices. Yes.
The next adaptation that we'll briefly discuss is the 2013 adaptation that has Haley Steinfeld and Douglas Booth as Romeo and Juliet.
Which I've seen. You actually seen it?
I've seen
we talk about
part of it. I haven't
yeah,
seen
you've
it.
seen parts of it.
I haven't seen it in whole. I don't know that I never got behind them as Romeo and Juliet.
It's interesting. It's there's definitely sort of I should look up who directed this because I did not do that, but there's definitely sort of, they almost like took it and tried to do it, like make it their own, because there are additional scenes that are not in the original. Like there's a whole thing where Romeo's like an artiste and he's a sculptor and he's like sculpting a
So basically they were
Rosaline.
trying to add more quote depth to characters.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great, and
It doesn't do anything.
there's really oddly in that adaptation almost like a stark contrast in the ages of the two actors. Because I know Haley Steinfeld was like 16 when they did that movie. And you can like really tell that Douglas Booth is a lot older than her, which is like obviously the original is, yes, they are like 4 years apart.
Right.
It's just a lot to do it now and to like really hold on to that idea. You're like, this is kind of illegal.
Just a bit.
It's not bad though. It's pretty well shot and everything is very in period. They do a good job with all of that. So take from that what you will.
Are we ready to dive into what I dare say is our favorite adaptation?
Yes, and you can say it. Dare to say it, Kara. It is the truth. It is a truth universally acknowledged.
At least between the two of us.
By us. Yeah.
Oh, man. So in 2014, there were a group of university students at Tufts University that they adapted this Shakespeare play into 18 episodes for a web series called Jules and Monty.
Love them.
And I remember watching this as it came out. I got to have several conversations with the creators themselves within like the year following, because they really liked the fact that I actually like reviewed their the thing, because I did a whole like review video on YouTube after I watched it, because that was during the time when I was doing that more regularly than I am now. And like hearing how they got to like do everything and how they chose to go about through everything was always so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And they've done other things since then, and they're both becoming very successful adults in their post-college life. So for Jules and Monty, it's a modern take on the play, and it's set at the University of Verona.
Love it.
And you have your Capulets and your Montagues as two fraternities.
Mhm.
So you have Kappa Alpha Psi, which they did not actually mean to use it as an actual like fraternity that does in fact exist.
Ooh.
Because Kappa Alpha Psi is a legit fraternity. It was meant to be Kappa Psi Alpha.
Ah.
But when they made the shirts, they accidentally
Flipped the words. That's funny.
the Greek letters. So they had to change it. But that was not meant to be.
That's funny.
That was not meant to be how
that.
it was. Kappa was always meant to be like the first letter because Kappa, Capulet.
Yeah,
Like
makes sense.
it made sense. And then for the Montagues, the fraternity that represents them is Mu Tau Gamma, or as they constantly refer to it as MTG.
MTG.
And so you have these two feuding fraternities, which we have no idea why they're feuding. Which I mean,
no backstory.
If you really think about it, we don't even know why the Capulets and the Montagues are
no,
feuding.
You're never given any of that information in Romeo and Juliet itself. I don't think it's important to the story because nobody cares at that point. The city's just like, why?
Right. But I always wanted to know why.
Yeah. And it would be really interesting to get like the backstory, to get the young Capulet and Montague backstory of why they don't like each other.
Like, I doubt it's some sort of Hatfield McCoy business where someone stole a pig and that was just it.
I mean, I would hope not, but you never know. These petty people. Petty people.
But with for this sense, like, what would be a reason for fraternities to be feuding?
Because they're fraternities. Don't they feud a little bit anyways? As somebody who never finished college and was never in a fraternity, I feel like sometimes they just feud because like they like want to feud. They're a bunch of hormone-fueled boys.
I had a lot of friends that were in the Greek life. I never partook in it outside of like being in an honor society. Any Greek letters that I possess are from honor societies. But while I had heard, there are different reputations that go with each like fraternity and sororities alike, that was never a reason for them to like, quote, like hate each other.
I feel like it was like the thing that was happening in the early 2000s. Like I feel like there were movies that came out that like made it look like Greek life was all about which fraternity or sorority was better than the other one. And I feel like maybe that fueled the concept behind Jules and Monty. That it would be easy to do it at a college because they were all at Tufts.
Right.
So they were like, we'll do this, set it at the college. Well, what are two things in college that would fight? Fraternities? Sure. I would have to ask them, but like...
Yeah, we would have to talk to the creators, which is Imogen Browder and Ed Rossini.
Who I love. I follow both of them on Instagram and Twitter.
I definitely still follow them on some social media platform. Which one, I couldn't tell you. It's been forever.
Well, the nice thing about Jules and Monty is that they gave you the background stuff as well. There's all that behind the scenes content that you could watch. But like if you're watching it almost parallel to each other, it's really cool to see the way that everything came together, especially in the first episode of the behind the scenes, because it's just Imogen and Ed sitting in a dorm room, be like, we're still writing it. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
And one of the things I really love how they wrote it, because they still preserved some of the original Shakespearean language, but it's strategically used for when they are severely in love or they are intoxicated.
It never comes off as they're switching into a different time period. It feels very natural the way that they inserted it into little parts of the episodes.
But like all of the different things, it's because they even weave in some, expletives into some of the Shakespearean language. So that way it doesn't fully like snap you out of it of like, oh, That's right. We're in modern times here. Like no,
Yeah,
like
no.
it all feels like it flows, and it in a
It's
way
extremely well written.
it provides more context, so that for those that have a hard time following Shakespeare's language. I mean, when I read the prologue, like I doubt any of you fully understood what I said.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you because it's been forever since I've read it that I fully understand what I said.
I think there are basic pieces of it that you get, but like it's still like very much a different language.
Yes. And the concept of this, because it is a vlog style thing, which I think is so cool that they were able to figure out a way to do that, is Romeo and Juliet are in a communications class that it requires, for a project, they are required to vlog for a whole semester. And so they're each like in that class, so you get to see each of their vlogs going, which Juliet's vlog is done as more of like a group project because she gets to do it with her friend the nurse, which is given an actual name, Nancy,
who's played by Evie Reedy, who's fabulous.
Love her so much.
Love her so much. I could talk about Evie all day.
Like the life that they gave to the character of the nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Which is, and when you watch other adaptations, she's always sort of given this life that I don't think you read when you're reading Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they pick somebody to play her, I feel like they do a really good job of finding somebody who's going to bring that sort of warmth and affection.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the actual play, Juliet is obviously the young daughter of two wealthy people who could care less other than to get her married off to a rich man. So she sort of gets
true
this
of so
motherly,
many people in that time.
Yes. So she gets this motherly, sisterly affection from the nurse, which I love that they put that into Nancy and really made her this character who cares so much about Juliet and also comes to care about Monty a lot. And Evie played her very well.
Oh, absolutely flawlessly. But every now and then I get the itch to rewatch it and it makes me happy.
Every now and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch Jules and Monty from start to finish today. It's going to be great. Because you can do it in one day.
Oh, yeah.
It's very easy.
And they have like different little like pieces of music that are like promoting independent artists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool.
They really did a lot to make this a project by independent artists, for independent artists, about independent artists.
Yes.
Like it was very obviously very important to them that when they made this, that it was not like this big production thing, despite how well of a job they did with the budget they had. And if you watch the behind the scenes, they're using like a sweater to create light. And like they were obviously trying really hard to make something beautiful out of something that they were like, we've got like $20 today.
Oh, yeah. But they also had like the backing of the school to like utilize some of that.
Yeah, and Tufts is a really excellent arts.
In all honesty, it makes me jealous when I see them post things on their page because it's like, I wanted to do those things.
Yeah.
I didn't have the resources to do said things.
Yeah, I would have killed to go somewhere like Tufts.
Oh, man. It would have been so great.
Could never have afforded it.
Definitely not.
Never.
In this adaptation, you have the Lord of Kappa.
I love him.
And he's the like fraternity president and is Juliet's older brother.
Cliff Kane.
Which is
With such a name. Their parents, Cliff and Juliet. Who thought of that?
I just want to know why they decided to name him Cliff, because it's not like Lord Capulet has a name.
Oh, who knows? It's probably like some sort of nod to like Heathcliff or something.
Maybe.
Some sort of other literary nod.
Maybe.
Because they got to name him whatever they wanted.
Yeah. And as we previously mentioned, we do get to actually see the character of Rosalind.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, like literally in the very first vlog that we meet Romeo in, she's chilling in the background.
Rose Campbell is what they named her.
Yes, and bless her.
Bless her. She's great. I love her. Becca Cooley plays her. And she is so funny.
I love the way that she plays her. But at the same time, the character is ridiculous.
She is, though. And I love that they gave her the leniency to be like, these are the lines we want her to be sort of over the top and a little bit much.
Like, I would even put her in the like stereotypical sorority girl-esque kind of mindset.
This is my boyfriend Monty. I love him. And because, you know, she and Romeo are actually dating at the beginning. And I think the thing is that they wanted you to like her but find her annoying so that when she and Romeo did end up not being together anymore, you didn't necessarily feel bad for her, but you didn't hate her.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. They like still wanted you to like have a heart about it.
A semblance of a heart.
A semblance of a heart about it. And in that episode, you also meet Mercutio Mark Matthews.
Yeah, again, they gave him some of the names that they like added to like
They're funny.
to bring it to that like modern level.
Yeah.
It's just
and I love him. He's played by Marcus Hunter, and he wears that cat shirt. Is it a cat shirt?
Yes, it's a cat shirt.
It's a cat shirt. I love that stupid cat shirt. He's just very fun, and he's very, I mean, Mercutio, for anybody who hasn't read Romeo and Juliet, is, I mean, as over the top as it gets in a friend.
Oh, yeah.
And I think as Mark, oh, man.
And he gets to do the Queen Mab speech.
Love her.
Which, that whole speech was done so well.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that also just like adds a level of authenticity to it is it's not like they blocked things off when they were shooting and were like, okay, hey, you're gonna walk through in the background. Like, no, like they just chose a time to do it, and if anybody walked through, they walked through.
Yeah.
And so like you see people giving him weird looks because he's yelling about Queen Mab
And they're like
in the middle.
But like in all legitimacy, that would be happening.
Yes.
Like imagine stumbling upon these boys and one of them is just Queen Mab has been with you, and you're like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Even without the fact that it was obviously done whenever they could and whenever they had time because they were walking around school, it literally is, well, what would the crowd do? Like, what would a group of strangers do in reaction to this?
Right, but it wasn't like it wasn't directed. It was just it was genuine.
There's a real authenticity about it because it is a vlog that they are making via vlog.
Mm-hmm.
Like, despite the fact that they are not actually holding the camera.
They really do a good job of making you think that they are in fact holding it, even though it's actually like a professional-ish person. I mean, I have a feeling he's probably way more professional in doing more things now, but like his camera work was amazing.
I think his name was Ben.
I think so.
I think his name was Ben. So good job, Ben. We love you. Did a wonderful job.
I was jealous. Still am jealous.
Yes. Oh, every time I watch this, I'm like, God, what a time to be alive. I've done nothing.
Makes me want to actually make the scripts that I've written.
Truly, though.
So the party where Romeo and Juliet meet is the infamous Kappa Alpha Psi formal of some kind.
Masquerade formal because they're all wearing masks.
Yeah, it's the fall ball. That's what it is.
There it is, the fall ball.
Like, what is the actual
I was like,
name
man,
for
I haven't
it?
watched this in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So they go to the fall ball, which of course is masquerade. So of course, some of the MTG guys got to get in there.
They have to crash it. It is their sworn duty as enemies of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Yeah. They must be there or be square. I don't know.
And it's not like it's all of them. It's literally just Romeo, Mercutio, and Benvolio. Those are the only MTG brothers that crashed this Kappa party.
Ben Thomas is played by Paul Perrone.
Yes. And there's such a genuine sweetness about like the whole character of Benvolio. Like you can see he really wants what's best for Romeo, but he's not looking to create chaos, where Mercutio seems a little bit more chaotic.
Mark is fully here to just create chaos and then leave. He's like, I've done my job, I gotta go.
Yes. Which I don't think we've mentioned because we keep referring to him as Romeo. But Romeo's name in this adaptation is Romeo Montgomery. And because he doesn't like the name Romeo, he is referred to as Monty.
Yes.
So which is where we get the title Jules and Monty.
We should probably start calling him Monty.
We should. And then Juliet goes by Jules.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Juliet Jules Kane.
Now we have Jules and Monty fully established as to why it's called that way.
Yes, you're welcome that it took us 20 minutes to get there.
Sorry, we got a little distracted by all the shiny things that is amazingness.
Yes. So they go to this party, and I mean, when you have to do a vlog project, what are you gonna do but film, I don't know, the stupid party you have to go to?
Right. Which, I mean, like you get to see an episode where it's from Juliet's perspective, and then you get to see an episode from, quote, Monty's perspective. And I say quote because technically it is from Benvolio and Mercutio's perspective, because the way that they see the like positive side of Monty doing this project is whenever they have drunken nights and drunken escapades, they have a camera that will actually tell them what they did when they get blackout drunk.
Yes. I mean, which is, very smart, but also, oh my God.
It's big dumb too.
Which, I mean, you get that in almost every episode is somewhat of a different perspective.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you get to a point later where they're really not, but...
Right.
The first several episodes.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, with the Juliet episodes, if you want to, like, split them between being Juliet and Romeo episodes, the Juliet episodes are really split between Juliet and the nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're doing this project together. Where Monty's doing this solo, and his friends are just helping him.
They're hijacking it, is what you're trying to say.
Yes, full blown. And we haven't mentioned Tybalt yet, but Tybalt is a cousin in this one of Juliet and Cliff, which, I mean, technically he's a cousin in the play as well. Too. But I don't know, it just feels different in this than the sense that the cousin feels in the Shakespeare play.
Yeah. And he goes by Ty in this one. He's Ty Johnson.
Yes. And there's a thing between him and Nancy.
Ooh.
Which spices it up a little bit. And honestly, it makes it more endearing to see how they're all so connected.
Yeah. And he's played by Andy DeLeon. Ty's fun. I mean, he does his job to move the story along and sort of keep Nancy occupied in some ways.
Yes. And you get the sense that he has a genuine heart and he wants what is absolutely best for Juliet.
Unlike Tybalt.
Yeah.
Who is definitely just angry.
Who's just more like, oh my gosh, this feud is everything. This feud is my life.
This feud is my life. Yes. Very that.
And at the fall ball, we get to meet the Lord of Kappa as he addresses his, quote, subjects. And you can see that, like, you get little hints that there's something else that's not necessarily wrong. I don't think wrong is the right word to use in this situation. I'm trying to think of the word to use. There are hints that something is coming.
Yeah, something might be a little off.
Yeah.
Like it's a little undertone of just wait and see. We can't find an actual word for this. As if we both, like, haven't read so many books.
Because we could say, something's wrong with Cliff because of what happens. We could say that, like, he clearly has issues. But as to why those issues exist,
there's really no information.
Right.
So, at this party, if I'm remembering it correctly, we also get to meet our Paris.
Yes, which he's a French, foreign exchange student.
Named Pierre Latour.
Which the actor who portrayed him is not French at all, but he did oversell that French accent.
He really did. I lived for it. His name, and I'm not gonna try his last name because I feel like I'll butcher it. I guess I could try it. His name is Artoon Festikijan. You're welcome for that. I'm so sorry if I just butchered the hell out of that name. I'm never good with names.
There are some names that are harder to do off the top of the head.
It's just a lot of letters. All right, so you get to meet Pierre, who is he's very much the equivalent of like Pepe Le Pew, where he's everything is oui oui, mon chéri. It's like Pepe Le Pew and the Candlestick.
Lumiere
had a baby, and he's human.
You're not wrong about that.
He's great though. I love him because he very much comes up to Juliet with that like sort of I am French and you will love me sort of vibe. Right. Every time.
And because for whatever reason, Cliff is bound and determined to have Pierre date Jules.
Yeah, I don't know why Cliff is so he's like told Pierre that Juliet is gonna date him. He's like promised him almost.
Yes. It feels like a betrothal is happening.
And you're like, she's in college. Let her live her life.
And the thing that I find so interesting is Pierre's just like, okay. And I don't know if that's they're playing off he's a foreign exchange student, so he doesn't necessarily know anything about American customs. And
yeah, he
may think that, this is absolutely normal. Like, I don't know.
Who knows? It's just very...
It always struck me as odd that Pierre just accepts it.
Yeah, Pierre's like, this is fine. This will work. I could spend this whole podcast being French, so I'm going to move on. So at this party... Obviously, same way as in the play, Jules and Monty bump into each other and then find out that they have the same project to do for Professor Lawrence.
It's not Professor Lawrence.
Yeah, it is.
No, Professor Lawrence is Monty's advisor.
What's the professor's name that they do?
I don't know that they mention an actual... I think they just say Com1.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
They just find out that they're taking the same course.
Use probs right, girl.
Because I guess we also never mentioned, they have it where Juliet's a freshman in college and Monty is a sophomore. And Monty's also, we definitely breezed over this. He's having like, in a way, a midlife crisis.
He's like 20-something and he's having a midlife crisis.
Because he's trying to figure out what it is that he actually wants to do. And he's not sure that everything that he did his freshman year is what he wants to continue with.
Yeah.
Because he's reevaluating. Like, I don't know that he's actually declared a major yet, but he's reevaluating, like, being a part of Mu Tau Gamma, because he only did that because of Mark. And
yeah. I thought he'd done something in, like, poetry, and he was like, so I will be a busboy for the rest of my life or something like that.
Maybe. Or maybe he's considering, I think that's what it is. He's considering like a degree in theater.
Yeah, or something.
And a minor in poetry. Which at one point you do see some remnants of stage makeup on Ed's face because at the time that they were filming, he was in the middle of being in a production.
My favorite fact about this, because if you watch the vlogs, which is the behind the scenes. He was in Hedwig and the Angry Inch. She was playing Hedwig. I love that play. I've seen it on Broadway. And every time I watch it, and he's like, my nails, your Schmiegel nails. And I'm like, yeah, because you're playing a drag queen. It's great. It's so fun. And yes, it's just funny to like catch him when he's like still rimmed from the eyeliner. Mm-hmm. Wow, such a girl problem.
And every now and then you can also see some like glitter on his face.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of glitter, particularly in the
with the masquerade because of all the glitter on the masks. Yeah.
Oh my God, there was glitter everywhere. If you're watching it, the glitter from the light just shining. I'm like, there's glitter all over your face. How did you? Well,
get that? And because of how much they were like sweating, because of how hot it was where they were, it was just like the glitter was sticking were in, like, to them.
The basement of something when they did that, like an actual fraternity or something.
Maybe.
It's been a long time since I've watched the vlogs, but I can't highly recommend the vlogs.
You need to watch them both.
If you're ever feeling like you need something to do.
Yeah. So you have all that stuff where you get to meet everybody, and you have Tybalt kicking them out because he is genuinely just trying to like look out for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, I like Tybalt more in this than any other adaptation.
Ty is very sweet and unassuming, whereas like Tybalt was very angry and aggressive.
Full of rage.
Full of rage. I am a very mad cat.
One of your 9 lives, sir. So after the fall ball, I mean, Jules successfully evades Pierre for a long time.
And doesn't successfully evade Monty's mouth. It's just fact.
Very true fact.
Fact that Mark and Ben catch in motion and action.
Yes. And Juliet, like, the vlog after the party, you get to see Juliet telling Nancy about everything, and the way that she describes this kiss. I love this. Like, it literally is a set of lines that like plays in my head so many times, which is
he live in your head rent free.
Yes. He kisses by the book. I don't know what books you're reading.
Love that too. Nancy's so sarcastic. It's just it's like the perfect play off of Juliet's sort of innocence and almost silly whimsy of her character.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, even to an extent, you get to see where, like, Nancy, quote, lays claim to Ty.
Yeah.
And she's, like, she's more forward with her language than anybody else. And it makes Juliet uncomfortable a little bit. But because Juliet and Nancy have been friends for so long, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I think they're very comfortable with each other. So no matter what Nancy says, Juliet's like, well, that's my friend.
Yep.
It's very aggressive, but that's my friend. Talking about my cousin. Okay. I think she's probably just used to it. Because quite obviously Nancy has been in love with Ty for a long time.
And this is just now like the actual chance that they're given to go for it. Which I have to mention the song I Could Get Away with Murder.
Oh my god, yes.
Specifically whenever that song just randomly like starts being stuck in my head, that's when I know it's time to rewatch Jules and Monty.
It's like, it just, sometimes you're like, there it is. It is my time.
And if I could play a clip for you, I would, but
we don't own it, so we're not going to do that.
Nope. But it's a solid song. You can find it on SoundCloud.
Search for it. It's a great song.
But you find different ways that, like, Juliet is going on and on about this kiss and how she really, really liked this guy. And then Nancy's like, because you know who this person is, right? And Juliet doesn't know. Juliet doesn't know his name, doesn't know that he's a Mu Tau Gamma, doesn't know all these different things about him that Nancy happens to know.
Because it's always Nancy.
Because it's like, his name is Romeo, if you even care. And he's a Mu Tau Gamma. It's like, goes on about all these things. And it's like, and it's that like proper blend of Shakespeare and modern language. Because you have, essentially just, it's like heightened emotion is really like when all of Shakespearean language is used. Yeah. And so, and it punctuates things so well.
After the party, they have a quote-unquote balcony thing. Because obviously they're at college. There are no balconies. I don't know what college you go to, but there are no balconies at this one.
Well, and yeah, it's like there wasn't a balcony, but he, for whatever reason,
she was like at the window talking about something, and he saw her from outside.
Right.
Which is not at all creepy.
It's like that. I don't think that is creepy. The fact that he found which door was hers.
I wonder if he just like was outside, like 1, 2, counting them, trying to figure out which one it was.
It's like that was always
like,
one of
go up to the second floor. It's this many from this wall. I got this.
Because it's not that out of the ordinary where it's like, oh, you're walking through and you like happen to glance up and it's like, wait, that face, it looks familiar. Like,
What light through yonder window breaks?
Yes.
And you get a lot of the Shakespeare language in that interaction with them, with him coming up. She like
Yes.
opens the door and he's like, give me love and I will be new baptized. That's what
Yeah.
I want. And she's like, no.
Yeah, and she gives him a bloody nose because she slams the door in his face.
The door in his face.
And there's this whole like little sequence of Nancy like coming in and out because I guess they had community bathrooms, not like a private bathroom. And so you get to see Nancy in a towel and she's like, crap, I forgot such and such. And, you know.
Yeah, and she like hides him under the desk.
Yeah, like.
She's like, you gotta go. Nancy's coming.
And he's like, well, who is it? And Juliet's like, it's my roommate. And it's like, oh, well, why can't I meet her? He's like, she's in a towel. He's like, well, I guess.
I guess that's the worst.
And like you see this whole, and it's a very like sweet and innocent thing. And I mean, with some of the Shakespearean language, it feels a little rushed to an extent, but that's also kind of the point. And if you think about, especially the way like some movies portray college romances, they're just as quick as high school romances. And
because they're like, well, we'll meet up, we'll make plans. This is gonna happen, but we're gonna have to do it quietly so that nobody knows.
Yeah, well, especially with her being the Lord of Kappa's sister.
Yeah, she's like, I am Cliff's sister, and Monty's like,
and Nancy goes on Juliet's behalf and seeks out Monty and essentially sets up like their first real date. The fact that Nancy is doing this on Juliet's behalf, Ty doesn't know that it's for Juliet that Nancy's doing this for. He just knows that he's meeting with somebody who's part of Mu Tau Gamma and it bugs him. And so you get to see a little bit of that. And Nancy goes like, well, if it really bothers you that much, then before this can even start, it's going to be over and you can stop calling me at 2 a.m.
She's so sarcastic.
She is so sassy.
Because then after that, I believe the next episode is when you get to meet Professor Lawrence.
Maybe.
I think so. Who is played by Noe Montez, who was an actual professor at Tufts.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's just Monty goes to Professor Lawrence because Romeo goes to Dr. Lawrence to get advice. He is his advisor, so very important information in that episode.
So much important information. And because of the person who played the professor was being an actual professor, it's not like he had a whole lot of time to memorize lines. So they put in like email sounds for every time you see him look down at his laptop, which is where the script was. Yeah. So there's a little bit of demystifying here.
I'm telling you, watch the vlogs.
Yeah.
Watch the whole thing and then also go watch the vlogs because it's insane to get to see the incredible process behind actually making something like this because you don't normally get to see that. Like when we talked about Lizzie Bennet Diaries, it was not something we got to see because there's, I think, a little bit more of a suspension of disbelief that you're supposed to have with Lizzie Bennet Diaries, that it's actually real and it's actually happening,
and that you're actually going to interact with the characters because they had that the whole transmedia thing.
Yeah. Whereas with this one, it's, quite obviously you're watching something. I really like, because after Nancy goes and finds him and is essentially like, y'all, I can't deal with the two of you. Figure it out. I will be here if you need me. I love that we get the montage.
Yes.
The montage is so funny.
It's cute and vomit-inducing adorable.
Poor Nancy third wheeling for that whole thing.
In a way, it tells you how big the campus for the University of Verona is.
Yes.
They were able to do that without anybody from the Kappa fraternity finding out and telling Cliff.
Yeah, because they were like in the library. They were like out at the swings. They were just like walking through the courtyard. And I'm like, wow, this must be a big old school if nobody is seeing that you're doing, if you just never run into Cliff. I'm very impressed. Or they just know Cliff's hangouts and they avoid them.
Maybe.
Possible. Very possible.
And Nancy describes him as a disaster waiting to happen.
Because it's true. Star-crossed lovers, they're literally a disaster.
And Nancy is fully aware of the dangers because Nancy knows what we don't know yet in the journey that we are on. We don't know what it is that like Cliff will do if he finds them and whatnot. We just get hints that something bad will happen if Cliff finds out.
Yes, exactly.
That's what we get.
I think there's that sort of humanity behind Nancy of like, these are my friends. I shall protect them because I don't have a choice, because I know it will happen otherwise. Because then after the montage, that's when the Kappas and the MTGs have that party.
Yes,
where they're, like,
it's
trying to be
the
friends.
annual. Yeah, that's like required by school administration. Like, look, we know you have this feud, so here's your annual get along party. You have to do it.
Get along while you're doing it, which of course does not go the way that anybody wants it to go.
Nope. And the fight between Mercutio and Tybalt is done as a drinking game between Mark and Ty.
Which is funny.
It is, and that's where you get some of the 9 lives and will you walk and all that fun insulting that Mercutio does for Tybalt.
Yeah, that great dialogue between Mercutio and Tybalt in the actual play. They did a really good job of sort of somehow making that work into like a shot drinking game.
For a fraternity, nonetheless.
It was very cool. But of course it ends badly because they figure out that the Kappas have drugged Mark.
Yes. Yeah. Tybalt or Ty slipped a sedative into one of the shots for Mark and that knocks him out.
And then Monty proceeds to knock out Ty.
Physically
knock him out.
Not with drugs.
Which of course leads to a big old fight and all of the things and the insanity.
Yep. Which has now made Monty the most wanted Montague. The most wanted Mu Tau Gamma.
On campus.
And on campus. And I don't even think before then that Cliff even knew who Monty was.
No.
I think that's really what stuck him on the map for Cliff.
Yeah, which I think is so funny. I feel like if Juliet had just dated Monty and like given no context, Cliff would have been like, okay. But then Monty gets on his radar in a bad way. And it's like, oh, I gotta hate you now.
Yeah.
So I think that is really interesting that Cliff had no idea. It's not like the play where obviously the Capulets knew about the Montagues in that kind of way.
Yeah. And one of the things that you get to see when Monty's on his way to this party is you get to see Cliff and Pierre having a conversation that is really essentially Cliff sealing the deal that Pierre will have Juliet.
Yeah. Which, again, what? It's so funny.
Which we get to find out more about that after the party, but before we get to that specific point, after it happens, like Nancy comes in and tells Juliet what happened, and then Cliff shows up and tells Juliet that she has to stay inside. She's not allowed to go anywhere, that it's not safe because there's a crazy MTG brother on the loose. And
they really over-dramatized this fraternity fight.
They really did.
Which is fun.
And Nancy decides that for the sake of Juliet, because she loves Juliet so much, she will go and find Monty and send Monty to their room. And Nancy decides that she's going to go to the hospital because turns out she actually really loves Ty. It's not just, oh, this is fun. It's a little fling for college. Like, no, she actually cares for him. And so she decides to go to the hospital to be there for him.
Yeah. And Monty, after the party, goes to the most obvious place that he could go to, which would be his advisor's house.
Yes.
He goes to Professor Lawrence's house very late at night to hide out and get some advice. And I mean, this is a great moment for Professor Lawrence, and they did a really good job again of inserting the Shakespearean into the advice that he gives.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, obviously, Friar Lawrence had a lot to say about, I think this is a good thing for you. Not the fighting. Juliet.
Yes.
Juliet is a good thing for you, and it's a good thing at that point, of course, thinking it's a good thing for everybody that you guys are doing this. It will mend a rift. But again, still being the why are you a foolish boy voice, which I think is important because I always feel like if you're going to make Friar Lawrence in any capacity, he has to be that mix of wisdom and chiding.
Yeah.
Like, stop being stupid, but also do what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he offers to like help Monty get ready to have his audience with the dean, which would be the prince in this situation.
Yes.
Because
he got into a fight.
Like there's nothing that they can do to get around this. Like this is something that happened and it is a serious thing. And, there's talk of wanting to press charges against Monty because of the amount of damage that was done to Ty. Like his face is fully busted up. And
I mean, he's at the hospital.
Right. But he has to have like reconstructive surgery, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
To like fix things so he can properly breathe.
Monty got him good.
Yeah.
Violence is never the answer, boys.
No, and Monty even like discusses the fact that he's really more of a pacifist. This was like a out of character thing for him, and it was just the fact that he cares so much for Mark because they're friends and they've been friends for so long that he's like, no, this wasn't right, and I had to do something. I couldn't just watch it happen.
Yeah.
After he has that conversation with Professor Lawrence, he on his way to just like wandering around because he's still not really sure what he's going to do, but he's pretty much figured out that hiding out where he was thinking he could hide out was not going to work for him. He runs into Nancy and he asks Nancy how Juliet's doing, and Nancy's like, she's fine. And then just like, wait. And she like full on punches Monty.
It was such a good moment.
And he's like, what was that for? He's like, that's for Ty. And she says other things after that, but I'm not going to say that for the sake of keeping our podcast relatively clean. And he's like, oh, right.
Makes sense.
And Nancy tells Romeo how to be able to get to Juliet and it not scare Juliet.
Yeah. Essentially, he needs to go, and this is the best way to do it, which leads to I feel like this scene with Juliet by herself, with Jules by herself. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to say Jules and Monty. It's not easy.
No, it's not.
With Jules by herself is probably the most Shakespeare-heavy scene.
Yes.
Because she gets to do the whole monologue about, cut him out into little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I don't think we've gotten that much introspection with Jules yet.
No, I think this is the most we get, yeah.
Always with Nancy.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to get her by herself. She's actively speaking to the camera about what has just happened and making this big declaration of, how much she really likes Monty. Mm-hmm. It's really beautiful, and Imogen does a really great job with it.
And then, like, the night that they get to spend together, like, it's really the morning after is what we get to see.
Yeah.
And Monty, like, decides he's going to leave her a message on the camera, which really works well and plays into the relationship that they've developed because it all started because they had to do this project together. And it's provided something great for
it's
the vlog
very
content.
Much like the time period's letter writing. It's almost as if he was writing her a letter to put on the pillow next to her while he had to slip out the door because of everything that was going on.
Yeah, because he had to go get ready for his audience with the dean.
Then, of course, she wakes up and they have this very nice moment of,
Yeah, and you have the lark and the nightingale and all of that where, like, Juliet's flipping back and forth between like, okay, no, you should go because this is what would be best, because you need to go and like have like do this thing with the dean to clear your name and do all this.
But no, stay with me.
And then at the same time, she really wants him to stay because she doesn't want him to go and she don't want to lose him.
Yeah.
And then Nancy comes in and lets them know, hey, Cliff is on his way, so
we gotta go.
Y'all really like Monty, you have to go, and Jules, you need to actually put on clothes that are yours.
Yes, that's probably a good idea. Let's make that happen. Yeah, because then the next episode is you get a trigger warning on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a brief description of violence as derived from Act 3, Scene 5 of Romeo and Juliet. So
yes.
Cliff comes over, and of course, still at that point, has no idea Monty's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not Monty and Jules. I mean, he obviously knows who Monty is after everything that happened the night before, but
Monty's on his radar, but not as lover of his sister.
Yeah. Jules, at that point, is sort of trying to defend Monty without obviously making it that Ty is this, he doesn't matter. She's like, Ty obviously matters, but like Monty was just doing what he thought was best. And then, of course, they get on the subject of Pierre because Cliff is still on that train. Drives that train.
He is driving it straight off a cliff.
Literally. And Jules is, I'm not going to be with Pierre. I have no desire to be with Pierre, which does not go well.
Right, which, I mean, she has that whole thing, which I think is something that comes straight from the play, where she's like, I will never be with this person. I'll actually be with Romeo, who that I don't care about.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd rather be with Romeo, who I despise. Like,
right. And like, there's all this buildup and back and forth, and Cliff's like, no, you need to do this because this is your place. This is your like purpose in life, is to do what I say.
Okay.
And Jules, being the very strong woman that she is, because I think we actually get to see how strong of a woman she is in this adaptation more than we even see in the play.
Yeah, and there's a lot of character development of how strong she gets from the first episode to the last episode in this one.
Yes. And it gives her just enough strength to stand up to Cliff to be like, no, you're not going to arrange this for me. I'm not going to be a prize that can be won, because Cliff's whole idea is for there to be some sort of game or competition for his fraternity where she is the prize.
Which is gross.
It is, and it's so baffling that would even be a thought.
So in sort of all of that, Cliff gets really frustrated and hits Juliet. Which is, again, derived actually from the play where Juliet's father hits her. And that is very strong ending to that episode. It's very like, kind of have to breathe after it happens.
Right. And I mean, the build up to that moment, I mean, like, obviously we've been getting little like hints along the way, but like after Monty leaves, Nancy says something of like, hey, I'm going to skip out on family fun time and I'll be in the next room.
It's obvious that Cliff has some sort of temper and they've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that they thought it would escalate to the point that it escalates to. But it's very obvious that they are aware that this is a part of Cliff.
Yes. It's not unheard of that we would, for Cliff to reach that point. But I don't think that it was expected that he would reach that point.
Yeah.
And so after that, you get to see a little bit of the turmoil of how they're trying to go about it. And it's decided that, like, based off of the hearing that Monty has, he has to transfer to the University of Mantua. Essentially, it's his exile.
Yes.
We don't get to see any more vlogs from Monty's perspective.
Yeah, because at that point, he wouldn't be doing that project anymore.
Exactly. Anything else we get now comes from Juliet.
And you do get an episode after the fact of Juliet sort of explaining everything that's happened, the aftermath of her dealing with everything that's happened,
Mm-hmm.
Monty leaving, the altercation with Cliff, who at that point I'm sure she's not really speaking to.
Like, I think it's even mentioned that, like, Nancy and Ty are helping her avoid Cliff.
Yeah. And it comes to, as well, a point where Jules has decided that she has to leave the University of Verona.
Yes, and there's a lot of different things that push her to make that choice. And there is a vlog that Nancy does where she is explaining that she felt like she had to do it. And the entire time, you're not really sure what it is that she's like, well, what did you have to do?
And it is the release of the actual footage of Cliff hitting Jules.
It's like you have that, but there's also the fact that she hides, she blocks Monty on everything. She makes it impossible for Monty to, like, contact Jules because Nancy believes that it's Monty, even though he's not there anymore. That's what's keeping her at the University of Verona.
Yeah. And because you get a sort of Skype conversation between Nancy and Monty where Monty's like, I can't get in touch with her. She won't respond to anything. And Nancy's like, yeah, bro, I did that. She's not necessarily proud, but she's obviously proud of herself for protecting her friend. In the aspect of, this is what she needs. You have to be willing to see what she needs.
Yeah.
On top of, like, it should be more important than what you need in that moment. Because, I mean, obviously Monty dealt with a lot. He had to leave school, but I think Jules got really sort of the bad end of all of this in the way that it affected her.
Yeah, and in a way, I would say that all of that is in a way, the poison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the metaphor of that is...
Yeah, and then you get a letter that Nancy writes, but it's technically from Monty.
Yeah, she writes Jules a letter as if it was from Monty, but Nancy wrote it.
And that's meant to be the dagger.
Yeah.
Oh, happy dagger.
Oh, man. The symbolism in this, man. I just applaud Imogen and Ed all day for writing this because it's brilliant.
Because the entire time that I was watching it, when it was like actively being released, I was trying to figure out, I was like, they're not actually going to have them commit suicide.
I know, yeah. I remember watching it originally and being like, nobody's going to die in this, are they? That would be very dark.
It's like, this is a very dark.
And they did such a good job of, like, making the decision of it being he leaves and almost Nancy deciding to, in a way, kill their relationship.
Yes.
Because she knows it is what's best.
Yes.
So it's interesting that Nancy is the one with the poison and the dagger in this adaptation.
But in a way, it provides another level of depth that doesn't exist for that character.
Mm-hmm. No, I live for it. I think this adaptation would go nowhere without her, so...
Yeah, no.
We don't know what happened in the end.
She moves so much of the plot.
Yes, much. Nancy moves plot. So in the last episode, the sad last episode of this, I wish it could go on forever, is at this point, Jules is leaving UV, University of Verona, for good. So it's really interesting because a lot of Jules' stuff with Jules and Nancy, if you watch it, is shot with her desk in the background, which is all the cute little, they have all the cute little things and they have a lot of little Shakespeare nods and all that great stuff.
Which that was actually like their room.
Yeah. It's actually hers and Evie's rooms. It's so interesting, that first shot of her desk completely clean. It's such a stark contrast to the first episode of meeting Jules.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely feels like it's like a clean slate. Like the end of this is meant to be a clean slate for both of them, despite how sad they both might be about it.
Yeah.
Because you get Jules and Nancy sort of having their sad goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet Jules' father, who's played by the Dean of Admissions.
Mm.
I remember it in the vlog. Watch the vlog.
Yes.
He's somebody important who's only in it for like 30 seconds, but he's there. Jules leaves, after giving this great speech to the camera about, she's looking forward to her new life. Despite all the things that have happened, she's very much looking forward to sort of starting over.
Mm-hmm.
She leaves, and I think it's like 17 seconds. And then Monty runs into the room. And there's that sadness of he's just missed her.
Yeah.
It's definitely a really sad moment because, despite it being based on Romeo and Juliet, you root for Jules and Monty. I don't really root for Romeo and Juliet.
Definitely not.
But I root for Jules and Monty. And so there's this like collective, oh no, at the end of that one. I've always wondered what would have happened. I'm always like, what are they doing now?
And Monty leaves Jules a message, and before he even like starts to leave her a message, he first implores Nancy to not be upset with him. He felt like he needed to do this, and he just implores with Nancy to make sure that Jules sees what he's about to say.
Mm-hmm.
And he pours his heart out one more time. And as an audience, we have no idea if Jules and Monty ever find each other again. However, there is a fan fiction out there.
Oh my God, is there really?
There is. Somebody wrote a piece of fan fiction about Jules and Monty, and it has them meeting several years later down the road after they've both like graduated from their respective universities that they have gone to and have essentially created new lives for themselves. And it's interesting because it's not, oh, well, Jules and Monty get together again. They're crossing paths after so many years.
So sad. But so beautiful. Well, I know, and again, we are not a spoiler-free podcast. I'm going to spoil the end of this for you. Evie, essentially at the end, the last little bit of the last episode, plays the chorus, gives us the, for never was a story of such woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo, and she deletes the video.
Yes.
She essentially deletes the content. What I would assume, what I got as an audience member, she deletes the whole thing.
Yes.
She's like, all right, goodbye to the vlogs. In a way, again, I think to protect her friend. And I'm like, Nancy's such a good person, but I just want to know what happens to them. Like, it's very sad because she's sitting again alone with the backdrop of Jules' empty desk behind her. Yeah. Realizing it's crazy too because like Jules is never gonna know, because of her deleting all of the footage, she's never gonna know what Nancy did unless Nancy tells her.
Right, or if she happened to watch it before it got taken down. Because that's the thing with that like last little bit at the end where it says this video has been deleted. We don't know.
Yeah, you have no idea how long it was up.
We have no context of time.
I think they did that on purpose, though. I think they want to give you the idea that maybe Jules did see it. I think it's sort of a write your own ending in a way of take what you will from this and decide whether or not you think that they continue or whether you think that they end up with other people. Which, I mean, everybody does have to write their eye. As much as I would like Jules and Monty to end up together, realistically, I don't think they do.
Mm-hmm.
I love how now I've just created real people. These are real people in my head.
I mean, in a way, just like with what they created within the 18 episodes, you can see how it could be a relationship for at least a decent part of their college experience. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it would end that way because Juliet is a freshman and Romeo is a sophomore, and they still have so much of their college experience left before them.
And at this point, they're going to different schools, and it'd be different maybe if they were still together.
It would definitely be different if they still were able to stay at the University of Verona. But because of the situations that happened, they were forced in different directions. And it's not necessarily unheard of, but it's not likely that they would have stood the test of time and space that would have been created because of it.
I feel like they're definitely the kind of people that like you have a really it's almost like high school sweethearts where you have like that really long relationship in high school. Of course, I'm not part of this, but I'm imagining it. High school sweethearts, they date like all 4 years, maybe a little bit of college, break up, 20-year reunion, come back, and they're like, we're in different places, but like, what a good memory. Good memes. Like, that's kind of how I feel like their relationship would be now, is that they would definitely be those people that are like, oh, remember the times we had. We could do another 4 hours of this. Could really get into this. Would you like to discuss the vlogs?
I would need a refresher course on that one.
Nobody wants that.
So, thank you, William Shakespeare, for giving us the source material for the adaptation that we literally spent the bulk of this podcast talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to anybody who's done an adaptation, obviously, despite the fact that we have our favorites.
Favorite.
It's a lot of work to do anything like this, period. So,
yes.
Bravo to everybody. Specifically, thank you to the entire, what is it, TUTV, Tufts University Television, who technically put this on, but specifically, I'm going to say specifically, to everybody actively involved in Jules and Monty, to Imogen and Ed for writing Jules and Monty.
Yes.
To everybody for being involved. To Evie for playing Nancy. Very important, thank you.
And honestly, all of her like beautiful art direction, because there's so much about that between the camera work and the set designs that honestly, you know, you don't think it would be all that creative considering it's set at a university.
Yeah.
We're just using what we have. Like, it still takes a lot of thought behind all of that.
And they didn't have, you know, that much funding or anything like that behind it. So it's obviously they were all going to school still, doing other things and being very involved in this. So it's brilliant and very well done, very beautiful. So thank you to the entire cast and crew of Jules and Monty.
Yes.
I'm going to be a big thank you to Zekaka for his beautiful, wonderful artwork. It makes this podcast beautiful, more beautiful. It's already a little beautiful.
And thank you to all of you for choosing to listen to us rattle on about this a little overdone Shakespeare play.
Very overdone Shakespeare.
I was trying to be nice.
I could go for another couple years without, you know, seeing another Romeo Juliet. As we get a West Side Story adaptation at the end of the year.
True. Thanks for tuning in to League of Lit. If you have any suggestions for an episode, feel free to leave a comment on leagueoflit.tumblr.com.